Hello and welcome back to the Dougie Critchley Football YouTube channel, guys. I've got a brand new show for you today. It's Football in 5. 5 key takeaways from the weekend around Europe. I'm kicking off with the transfer saga and some alternative suggestions. Let's get into the video. Obviously, that transfer saga is Alexander Isak's prospective move from Newcastle to Liverpool. This is something that's been rumbling on for weeks and weeks now. We've got a bit of a conflict going on, not between the two clubs, but between his parent club, Newcastle, and the player Alexander Isak. Isak insists that he had agreement with Newcastle to leave the club this summer. Newcastle say that that wasn't the case whatsoever. They are digging their heels in. And it's got to the final week of the window now, guys, and it's clear that Liverpool need to make alternative arrangements. I'm going to suggest 3 alternatives to Alexander Isak, and the first one is a bit more of a like for like than the other 2. I'm going to suggest that Liverpool have a look at Atletico Madrid's Julian Alvarez. Now, Julian Alvarez is obviously well known from his time at Man City. He joined Atletico Madrid last summer in an £82 million move. He ended up scoring 29 goals in his debut season for Atletico Madrid, as Atletico Madrid really struggled in the back half of the season and eventually finished 3rd, but Julian Alvarez really can't be faulted for his level of performance. There have been reports in the last few weeks that Julian Alvarez isn't that happy with his role at Atletico Madrid. Those quotes were publicised by Sport, who publicised it on the back of supposedly his entourage talking to El Chiringuito, which we can question in due course. But those supposed reports and quotes were that Julian Alvarez wasn't very happy with his role at Atletico Madrid, he wasn't enjoying being substituted, and he wasn't enjoying being asked to press his opposition fullback as much as he currently is by Diego Simeone. You can have some doubts about these for a number of reasons. Firstly, Julian Alvarez has always thoroughly enjoyed pressing. He was a press monster at Man City. He was a press monster before he arrived at Man City over in Argentina too. I highly doubt that's something that he wouldn't be enjoying being a part of Atletico Madrid. It's just in his nature. He's an incredibly tenacious player. Secondly, and arguably more importantly, El Chiringuito, who carried the quotes originally, that's a Real Madrid-based TV station. They predominantly cover Real Madrid, and Sport, who publicised the quotes next, that's a Barcelona-based paper. So it would be in both those clubs' interest to kind of disrupt his flow at Atletico Madrid, and Barcelona also as a club have an interest in that as well. Of course, Sport doesn't directly represent Barcelona's desires, but Barcelona the club, well, they'll probably be looking for a Robert Lewandowski replacement in 2026, and Julian Alvarez kind of ticks the box on that front too. And finally, on that point about him not being happy with his role at Atletico Madrid, he may have been substituted in quite a few games last year, as Diego Simeone often brought on Alexander Isak or Angel Correa when he was there, of course, but Julian Alvarez still ranks 2nd for league minutes in Atleti's squad last season, behind Jan Oblak. There wasn't a massive issue in terms of game time there. I can't speak to his thoughts directly, but he'll no doubt be furious with how Atletico Madrid have started the season. They lost 2-1 against Espanyol on the opening weekend, having been 1-0 up, and then they draw 1-1 at the weekend with Elche, newly promoted Elche, after conceding a really sloppy goal on the counter-attack from their own corner, with Robin and Normand struggling and failing to cut out the pass, and it was 2 passes and there were 3. Disastrous goal, particularly for a Diego Simeone side to concede, and now they're already 5 points behind Real Madrid and Barcelona. It's been far from ideal. Now, having cost over £80 million last summer, Atletico Madrid won't want to let him go, but if say Liverpool offered £110 million, which is what they offered Newcastle for Alexander Isak in their opening bid, would Atletico Madrid potentially come to the table? Maybe. Stop what you're doing right now, guys. If you are enjoying this video, why don't you leave it a like? Why don't you leave it a comment? Why don't you subscribe to the channel so you never miss an upload? Onwards. Moving on to the second option, a Premier League proven target, Antoine Semenyo. Could he be that man? Now, you might have some doubts about whether they should target a winger over a number 9. Antoine Semenyo can, of course, play centrally, but he's predominantly been used off the left-hand side by Bournemouth and also off the right. And in terms of wingers that can do both really naturally, Nico Williams, Bradley Barcola, Kivicha Kvaratskhelia, Rafinha, none of these feel available in the final week of the window. So Antoine Semenyo might be the best option. They, of course, saw him on the opening weekend of the Premier League on that Friday night fixture with Antoine Semenyo scoring 2 marvellous goals. He's a fantastic counter-attacking threat as well. Would he want to go to Liverpool? Well, he just extended his contract until 2030 earlier this summer. Big, bold move from him. Very Wolf Zaha to Crystal Palace, or at Crystal Palace energy. But would Liverpool be able to tempt them with £80, £90 million up front for a club the size of Bournemouth I think absolutely. And he started the season on fire, as I've already said. 2 goals and 1 assist. Only Richarlison with 8 has taken more than his 7 shots. Only Erling Haaland with 2.5 has topped his 1.6 XG accumulated so far. Antoine Semenyo can play off the right-hand side, which could be useful in the future when Mo Salah eventually ages out. If he plays on the left-hand side, you could play Cody Gakpo as Ugo Ekitike's backup as a central striker. And given the way Ugo Ekitike has started and taken to life in the Premier League, maybe he's the player to back and instead sign a more natural winger. Antoine Semenyo could be that guy. And finally, let's talk about the third suggestion, which could be Malick Fofana. Now, he very much fits into the one for the future category. He's not Premier League proven like Julian Alvarez, like Antoine Semenyo, but I think he'd be a fair bit cheaper given Lyon's financial situation than both of those players. He is, for me, alongside Jamie Gittins, the most exciting under 21-year-old left winger in world football. I'm not quite as hot and quite as convinced on Kenan Yildiz as those two just yet, although I do think he's enormously talented. But for me, Malick Fofana and Jamie Gittins are ahead of Kenan Yildiz right now, although partly that might be down to the fact that Juventus against expectations have struggled massively in the last few years. But in terms of Malick Fofana, he was signed from Ghent by Lyon in January 2024. They retain a 20% sell-on clause. That's Ghent, not Lyon. So of course, any fee that Lyon accumulate for Malick Fofana, a good portion of that is going to Ghent, so they might be driving quite a hard bargain for him. He's not as versatile as someone like Julian Alvarez, who can play up front in a 2 or by himself. Julian Alvarez could potentially play as more of a number 10 as well. Antoine Semenyo can play on both sides and centrally. Malick Fofana can be used off the right-hand side, but he's primarily a left winger. Last year, mainly used, a lot of rotation, but mainly used off the bench. I think he got 5 goals and 4 assists in Liga. He also contributed 6 goals in the Europa League, including scoring a brace at Ibrox. So impressive for a player that young to be able to go to the atmosphere and the bear pit that is Ibrox and deliver, and he does look enormously promising. In terms of his start to the season, like Antoine Semenyo, he's been absolutely phenomenal. He's got a goal and assist already to his name, as Lyon have gone 2 from 2 with 2 wins against Lens and Metz at the weekend. Check out Malick Fofana's goal from the weekend against Metz, dribbling past 2 players before slotting it home. It does feel like, having lost Ryan Cherki, Lyon will be doing everything in their power to keep Malick Fofana. He's such a crucial component of their chances of having a great season under Paulo Fonseca this year. But Malick Fofana, I think he's got the ability to contribute to Liverpool this season and then really explode in the coming years. And he feels like someone that's not going to upset the pecking order like someone like Alexander Isak would. But Liverpool fans, I want to hear from you. Who would you rather sign? Julian Alvarez, Antoine Semenyo or Malick Fofana? Let me know your reasoning in the comments below, and let's move on to our second takeaway. Football in 5 moves over to Germany now, and let's talk about Bayern Munich's crushing victory over RB Leipzig on Friday night, winning 6-0. This was a game where all the forwards, all the key men contributed. Michael Olise was absolutely remarkable on that right-hand side, backing up his phenomenal debut campaign with Bayern with a really pleasing performance. Luis Diaz felt so much more involved and energetic and in rhythm than in that Super Cup win as well, linking up really nicely with Harry Kane in central areas. And then Harry Kane, Mr. Inevitable, scores another hat-trick. That's his 3rd in the Bundesliga in just over 2 seasons. For context, Gerd Müller only ever scored 7 Bundesliga hat-tricks. Harry Kane fast chasing him down, and he's now 5 goals short of the likes of Dimitar Berbatov, Lukas Podolski and Edin Dzeko in Bundesliga history. Harry Kane, Mr. Reliable, Mr. so predictable in many ways. Phenomenal again on Friday night. And as I said in my predictions video last week, the Bundesliga does feel like a bit of a recession this year in terms of the title. Leverkusen lost to Hoffenheim, Stuttgart lost to Union Berlin, Dortmund threw away a 2-goal lead to draw 3-3 against St. Pauli. Disastrous stuff. And Bayer Leverkusen's Piero Hincapié is now being strongly linked with a move to Arsenal as well. That is another key man potentially exiting. The title does feel like it's going to be a procession for Bayern Munich, as I've already said, but in terms of the narratives that I'll be following on Football in 5 throughout the season, let's say, it's all about the emerging stars in the Bundesliga and the narrative kind of how Erik ten Hag can cope with this squad being absolutely decimated, but this was an incredibly comfortable opening night win for Bayern. Next up on Football in 5, let's head over to Spain and talk about Real Madrid's comfortable 3-0 win against Real Oviedo. And before I get into the amazing display of some of their forwards, I just want to give a massive shout out to Dean Howson, who's looked pretty faultless so far in Real Madrid white. Real Madrid white with black shorts as well. Not sure I'm a fan of that. That's a real throwback to the sort of mid 2010s. Not for me whatsoever. But Dean Howson has been absolutely phenomenal. And yes, it's early days. And yes, Serie A and Bundesliga sides have only played one game. But so far, he ranks 7th in the entirety of Europe for passes completed, 4th for passes into the final third, and he's completed more than 3 times as many clearances as any other member of that Real Madrid squad. With Trent Alexander-Arnold benched at the weekend against Real Oviedo, Dean Howson's been the top addition so far for Xabi Alonso's men. But this win was really all about Kylian Mbappe. He has been razor sharp so far this season. Early days, of course, but his first goal set up by Arda Guler after Arda Guler worked so hard to win the ball back in midfield. Xabi Alonso will absolutely love that before playing it through to Kylian Mbappe, who still had a lot of work to do, but turn, swivel, finish. Beautiful. His second goal, Vinicius Jr. is running through, lays it onto a plate for Kylian Mbappe, something we didn't see enough last season. And this is Vinicius Jr. coming off the bench in around the 60th minute, ends up with a goal to his name as well. And he looked really, really hungry. This was some of the best football I've seen Vinicius Jr. play in quite a while. And shout out Arda Guler as well. 8 chances created on the night. Absolutely phenomenal. Xabi Alonso's men, this is way, way more promising than their opening weekend performance. A great 3 points for Real Madrid here. The big storyline in Italy so far this weekend was Milan's loss to Cremonese, 2-1, and some of the goals that were scored were absolutely phenomenal. So Bascarotto, who must be one of the strongest looking players I've ever seen, he opened the scoreline for Cremonese after Milan had taken the lead. But Bonazzoli, who's back in Serie A, scored a phenomenal overhead kick to seal the win for Cremonese. This was a bit of a nightmare for Max Allegri, but it has to be noted that they didn't play too badly. They created over 2xg. Cremonese scored 2 goals from 0.4xg. That second one, you've got to go check it out from Bonazzoli. Absolutely remarkable finish. And in terms of this game, in terms of the new signings, Modric and Estupiñán started. Jashari came on, but Samuel Irishi wasn't fit enough to start. You wonder whether Max Allegri, with so many new players in his squad now, is just trying to ease in those players whilst they build up the connections. This was a real tough night for Jimenez up front in particular. He only got 1 of his 4 shots on target, and you imagine his confidence is on the floor right now. Victor Boniface was nearly signed last week before he failed that medical on the back of that prospective loan move, and now they're looking at Konrad Harder from Sporting CP, who I would advise against signing right now. I think his asking price of 27 million euros is way too much money as it stands right now. I mean, this is a guy that only started 6 league games last season, and he scored 21 goals in his entire career. I just don't think he's worth 27 million euros right now. I totally get it from Sporting CP's perspective. Having already lost Victor Gyökeres, this is the guy that they were sort of schooling in his way of play and hoping that he would pick up the mantle of the big Swede. But Konrad Harder, for me, not quite ready for Milan levels. I'd back Jimenez and Rafa Leão in particular as your strikers for this season, and maybe try and look to sign someone a little bit cheaper as your third choice. And finally, I just want to wrap up by talking about some golden oldies. Phenomenal display by Kevin De Bruyne on his Napoli and Serie A debut, at least competitive debut. Grabbed a goal in this one. It was a free kick that went in. It wasn't really meant, but a really nice display from Kevin De Bruyne, who had 3 shots and created 3 chances. This game, though, was really all about Scott McTominay, who picked up just where he left off last season, grabbed a goal, a brilliant header, also hit the bar with a kind of De Bruyne-esque long-range effort. McTominay absolutely loved by the Napoli faithful, and this was a top start by Conte's side, a comfortable win against Sassuolo, who did go down to 10 men. And finally, I want to wrap up by talking about Olivier Giroud, who continues to deliver at 38 years old. He scored a great goal on the opening weekend against Brest in that 3-3 draw after Felix Carrère played him through, and he scored the winning goal at the weekend against Monaco, who did have a number of chances themselves, but Magnus Akliouche, who's been linked strongly with the move to Spurs, missed a number of them. Really talented player, but this wasn't his best display. But Olivier Giroud grabbed the winning goal here as well. Could have grabbed a second as well, missed from the penalty spot, and if he'd scored that, that would have been his 3rd goal of the season already, and moved him level with Tajon Buchanan, who scored a hat-trick for Villarreal this weekend. Kane and Mbappe as the joint top scorer in Europe right now. Olivier Giroud, what a phenomenal story. You know, he's won the league with Montpellier and Milan, both of whom were underdogs at the time. He helped win Chelsea their 2nd Champions League in 2021. He's won the World Cup with France. And speaking of the French national team, this is the all-time top goal scorer for the French national team, still ahead of Thierry Henry, and Kylian Mbappe is chasing him down hard. And in terms of his goals per game rate with France, it was better than Thierry Henry too. Absolute legend, love Olivier Giroud, and he's taken to life at Lille like a duck to water. So guys, that was Football in 5. I've always wanted to do a show called The Football Feast, and anyone that used to watch me back on the Football Daily days will know that I was obsessed with this idea of talking and watching football together whilst eating food, but I decided that on a Monday or a Tuesday show, does anyone really want to watch me eat for 20 minutes? I'm not quite sure. So for now, we're calling it Football in 5. Let me know what you thought of the name. Let me know what you thought of my opinions on this weekend in Europe, what I missed out, what I should have included. Thank you so much for watching as ever. If you've enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to Dougie Critchley, like this video, and please comment, share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.